Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 27 finally decided to drop a bombshell we've all been waiting for, and it's insane. Eida finally tells us why Sarada and Sumire are immune to omnipotence, and the answer isn't just clever, it changes everything, all while planting a death flag for Eida's character. Meanwhile, Kawaki's out here threatening Amato like he's auditioning to be the next dictator of the ninja world. Mamushi just flexed a power so busted, it makes Code look like a warm-up boss, and Boruto, he's got a new upgrade coming. Yeah, it's terrifying in all the right ways. If you thought the story was slowing down due to it being back inside of Konoha, Chapter 27 just slammed the gas pedal straight through the floor. We open up the chapter where the last one left off. Damon has his hand around the necks of Sarada and Sumire, and Sarada realizes the position she's in. She's now cut her Mangekyo Sharingan off, looking at Damon to see what his next move will be. However, their apprehension, that was enough for Damon. Being the little troll that he is, he releases his hold on them, and he reminds them, I can kill you at any given moment, and I can do it before you even realize it. And it's not all bluster, because as we're told in Boruto chapter 80, Damon has never used his full power, while Sarada was able to track his speed and turn her head when he was getting ready to get behind her. This is still a highly suppressed Damon, but as we'll see later on, a challenger worthy of Damon is quickly approaching the village. Now that Damon has made his point, Eida reassures them that they won't be killed, saying she does find it odd that neither girl who is an Ōtsutsuki, yet they were immune to her power of omnipotence, which reminder that includes the charm ability that is a byproduct of omnipotence. Eida speculates that it might be due to both girls having been in love with Boruto, but then after thinking a bit, she remembers that Sarada and Sumire, they aren't the only girls in Konoha who are attracted to Boruto and Kawaki. Both boys in part 1 of the manga were shown to be attractive to multiple teenage girls, which leads to Eida coming to another conclusion. The reason why they're immune to omnipotence is because she made an exception when it came to her charm effect for them on a subconscious level, because as Momoshiki tells us in chapter 79, Eida can't control omnipotence, and Amato was a fool for trying to give a teenage girl like her that power. As a result, her desire of having real friends close to her age, she singled out Sarada and Sumire, and it does make sense when you think about why. It wasn't just because both girls were in love with an Ōtsutsuki like she was and they could bond over it, but instead, it was because both girls, through their comments in passing, showed that they truly understood her on a deeper level. Evident by, for example, Sumire in chapter 73, where she says Eida is actually cursed and that people only like her due to her ability, and that what Eida truly desires is a real relationship free of her powers of omnipotence. And Eida, upon hearing this, is drawn with a sad expression on her face, and after 3 years of chapter releases, we finally get the moment where everything is coming ahead with this plot point when Eida brings up Sarada's offer to be real friends, and we learn why she was so adamant that it be those two girls. Eida knew that both girls were in love with Boruto well before the events of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. This is due to her Senrigan allowing her to see all things in the present and the past up to the moment of her birth, which as of where this story is currently, that was 19 years ago. So in the year that Pain invaded Konoha and the Fourth Great Ninja War, she saw their relationships with Boruto, how they behaved. She saw in someone like Sarada that she liked Boruto without even realizing that she did, and she basically wanted girl talk. That was why her line of questioning in chapter 76, when they were all in the bed together, was framed how it was. She was fishing for information and prodding to form a connection that the three of them, they could bond over love. Eida says that she never truly got the feeling that either girl wanted to harm her, showing that she viewed them as being her real friends, and this is where the death flag is planted. She stated that if the two of them had been the ones who tried to kill her, she wouldn't view it as a bad thing. And that's a big deal. We are all longtime anime and manga fans. We know that in moments like this, when a character starts talking about death, that it's usually coming for them or someone they know. Sometimes it comes quickly, and in other times it takes many years to pay off. Like Neji, there were death flags for him during that cage bird speech with Naruto and Jiraiya. He had death flags when he basically said that he'd give his life for the village, and he killed Tsunade if she ever betrayed Konoha. For Eida, the fact that she's already thought of death and accepted it during a time where Mamushi, someone she is afraid of, is coming to the village, it might be time for us to start selling those Eida stocks. Upon hearing this, Sarada grabs Sumire's hand and she pulls her with her towards Eida to hug her. It's three girls who have survived varying degrees of trauma of omnipotence, and that Eida was cursed in being unable to find true love and normal relationships with people, Sarada and Sumire in being immune and having suffered the last 3 years as the boy that they love is persecuted and they face scrutiny for sticking up for him. Three survivors of this trauma are sharing a hug, and in Japanese culture that's a really big deal. Hugs in Japan, they're viewed differently than how we view things here in the West due to the intimacy that hugs offer. And having three girls who have endured this trauma, as Sarada states that this is a hug that is a symbol of her resolve and her friendship, it's the icing on the cake when you consider the cultural differences. However, this tender moment, as it's going on, things are getting more dire. Kashin Koji reveals that Mamushi's power is a terrifying one. Basically, it's a power that's more similar to Madara's Limbo clones than Naruto and Boruto using the multi-shadow clone jutsu, with shadow clones. If a shinobi is at 100% chakra, the chakra they have, it is distributed evenly amongst the clones. And the clone, for instance, if say you make 3 shadow clones, the chakra is split 4 ways at 25% each. You keep 25% of the chakra and your 3 clones each get 25% of your chakra. With Madara's Limbo clones, they have the full attack power and the chakra of the original, but they are limited to only 4 clones. With Mamushi, like Madara's Limbo clones, all of his clones, they have his full power, but there is no limit to how many he can make. So if he makes 1,000 clones, then all 1,000 will have his exact power level. However, as Itachi once said, every jutsu, no matter how formidable it is, it has a weakness, and Mamushi's Shinjutsu is no different. The more he splits his clones, the more their intelligence falls in proportion. So basically, he loses the edge that the awakened Shinju have, where they have independent thought and rise above their instincts. With each clone that he makes, they devolve further and further into being the mindless Ten Tails that we know from the 4th Great Ninja War. Also, with each clone, despite them having all this power, their pain threshold, it is being amplified in that he feels pain so much more, and that means that a shinobi who otherwise wouldn't be able to fight him, so take some random fodder like Kiba, they could do some damage. There is one other weakness to take note of. Mamushi's eyes are his biggest weakness. If you destroy his Rinnegan eyes, he can't use the jutsu to split apart, but the trade-off is that with every clone you destroy, he recovers his intelligence, just as when you destroy a shadow clone, the remaining chakra that's unused, as well as the experience and all the fatigue that the shadow clone had, it all goes back to the original user. It's a pretty clever take on the shadow clone jutsu when you really sit down and think about it. Kashin Koji says that they should look for 20 to 30 clones to be the ideal number, which will allow them to outsmart Mamushi and take them all down in one blow. However, Shikamaru, having the 200 IQ that he does, asks the important question: what if Mamushi leaves his real body behind? What good will that do to attack them all at once? And that's where we learn yet another weakness. The original body will still swarm to where the other clones are, especially if he has a high number of them. He'll be more likely to be sent there faster because he's operating off of instinct. Kashin Koji then reveals that the upcoming battle, it must, under all circumstances, take place inside of Konoha in order to take Jura off the board, because Jura has deep respect for Konoha. He will not harm anyone in the village or fight inside the village unless he himself is attacked, because Jura loves the books in Konoha and he loves the sweets that are sold there. Basically, Jura is a cultured man who likes to read Jiraiya's Makeout Tactics novels and eat some dango and sip some tea while doing so. And Kashin Koji reveals basically that Mamushi's lust for Eida will cause him to ignore Jura's orders to not fight inside of Konoha, though his fear of Jura will prevent him from doing any unnecessary damage, which basically means Mamushi is employing the same tactic that you see in series like Dragon Ball, where a Super Saiyan Goku fires off a ki blast, but it doesn't destroy the planet even though the ki blast is strong enough to do it, because he's containing the area damage via high skill. This battle with Mamushi, appears to be taking a similar approach. The damage where it's done is going to be limited where possible. Kashin Koji then tells Inojin he's going to teach him a jutsu that future version of Inojin made in order to avenge Himawari, which pause for a moment. Avenge Himawari means that in a future timeline, Himawari died and Inojin tried to avenge her death by making a jutsu that is backward compatible with the mind transfer jutsu, which now explains why he asked if Inojin liked Himawari and wanted to protect her. Koji was purposely using his feelings to lure him, pimp him out to be the new cell phone that can speak to Shikamaru and their allies, and then gave him an extra incentive by using this new info about Himawari falling in another timeline to begin teaching him, which means Inojin is about to get the benefits of 10 directions, just like Boruto did, since it is a lot easier to be taught the steps of a jutsu than to try to make one from scratch. As Boruto watches with a dark expression on his face, likely at having heard that his sister died in another timeline, Inojin vows to learn this jutsu as fast as possible. Meanwhile, back inside of Konoha, things get darker as well. Kawaki and Amato, they're reviewing the footage recorded via Kawaki's Ninja Tech eyes of the Jura fight, and we get another reveal. That tree that Jura was using to heal himself, it was the literal divine tree itself. And Amato deduces that it can both heal someone like Jura as well as be used as a weapon and a shield. Upon hearing this, Kawaki snaps, saying that the power Amato unlocked on side of him when he gave him Ishiki's full attack power, it wasn't enough, and he demands even more power, despite Amato warning him that there are dangers to gaining so much power. At this point, Kawaki grabs Amato by the throat and tells him to watch his mouth and says if Amato doesn't do as he asks, Kawaki will not revive his daughter. It's at this moment, more than any moment before, that we see a side of Kawaki that mirrors his other adopted fathers, Jigen and Ishiki Ōtsutsuki, beings who value power and force and less the values that Naruto tried to instill in Kawaki, which are patience and understanding. He is even using the same tactic that Jigen used on Amato, blackmail and manipulation. Help me and I'll help your daughter. However, we get a dark warning for Kawaki that he will suffer the same fate that Jigen did if he goes this route. Jigen's body couldn't contain Ishiki's full power. It was breaking apart, using not even the full power itself, since there is a noted difference in power between Jigen and Ishiki. Just as Jigen's body broke apart, Amato warns getting more power than Kawaki currently has will make his body break apart too, and there's a precedent for this even in Boruto, even before Boruto's manga. If you go back to when Kaguya was revived, just the sheer infusion of Kaguya's chakra that Zetsu was forcing into Amato's body was enough that his body was about to explode. The only thing that saved him were the regen abilities of being a 10-tailed Jinchuriki, and even then, his body almost exploded anyway. Kawaki obviously isn't a Jinchuriki, but he has the ninja tech in his body to amp his stats, which that includes regen and stamina, but to take on more power, he'd need to decrease that based on what Amato has continuously warned him, yet the allure power itself is too much for him. He's making the mistakes that Boruto made in the Momoshiki arc, seeking out power quickly and not truly earning the power that he wants to have by honing the skill and preparing the body to use the power that one seeks out. I'll liken it to a real world example. It's like driving a car. My car has 670 horsepower, but I've been driving performance cars ever since I got a driver's license, and I've driven on tracks before. I can handle a car that light with that much horsepower easily, but if I give you the same car, there's a chance that you would wreck it because you might not have the skill and experience. It's the same thing with power. If the body is not fully prepared to handle a power, it leads to eventual problems. And we see later on in the chapter that Boruto, he's learned from his mistakes versus Kawaki continues to make them, and he is going willingly down the path of Jigen where his body might eventually betray him. However, before we get to Boruto, we have to check in on Konohamaru, who's being grilled by Kobu, and things aren't going too well for him. Despite Konohamaru saying that he was the one who interrogated Boruto, Konohamaru is being hit with accusations that he is a mole, and this leads to Konohamaru saying that he used to hate Boruto, but after his battles in the Land of Wind and Boruto saving him, He's saying that the inconsistencies in how the public views Boruto versus what he's seen, they don't match up, which means that Kawaki has been thinking back to what Sarada has been saying for the past 3 years, where she stuck up for Boruto and he's slowly putting the pieces together on his own, just as Shikamaru did, which is required for someone to realize that their memories have been altered. Kobu isn't hearing any of it, saying that Konohamaru is basically too dumb to realize he's being manipulated and being used as a mole, but as he thinks privately, he's beginning to doubt that Konohamaru is the one he's looking for. That's when Shikamaru steps in, just as Kobu thinks it's time to look for someone else that's helping Boruto. Using Inojin's mind transmission jutsu, he tells him that he was the one who helped Boruto escape. And as Konohamaru tries to not let it be known that he's speaking to Shikamaru privately, Sai is drawn looking at Konohamaru closely, and given that he's married to Ino, and he's someone who spent his entire life in the Yanbu Black Ops, trained up by Danzo as a child, you can bet in this moment he's beginning to wonder if Konohamaru is speaking to somebody using the Yamanaka clan jutsu. Shikamaru tells Konohamaru to search his feelings in so many words, saying, "You know why I had to help Boruto escape execution," and before Konohamaru can even think the words that Boruto is Naruto's son, Shikamaru says that Kobu will eventually figure out it was him helping Boruto, but while he's Hokage, he needs Konohamaru to assist him, and he needs him to assist Boruto and Sai. His sussy Baka radar is now firmly locked on Konohamaru because his expressions change, and Sai is drawn with the evil kanji around his face for the dramatic effect. We then shift over to Sarada trying to leave with Sumire, but Eida refuses to let her leave, demanding that they talk some more, and Sumire quickly exits. But as she steps out, Boruto has appeared outside, and he makes a request after showing her how he uses chakra to run it through his blade, and he explains it to her. Basically, the weapon of a shinobi, it directly scales to the user when chakra is used in this way, but it has to actively have chakra run through it in order to fight in the way that Sasuke trained Boruto. But Boruto, during his battle with Jura, when the fight reached a certain point, his concentration slipped and it cracked his sword. Boruto hands her a scroll saying that he wants to have his sword fixed within a week, but she warns him that the technique that he wants to use for it will change the nature of the sword entirely, and she asks, is this really okay? Because while Boruto's using the sword, the true owner is Sasuke, since Boruto broke his sword when he and Sasuke failed to defeat Code, but Boruto says that Sasuke won't have any complaints, and this is a contrast to Kawaki, who used force and didn't work for the power that he's seeking. Boruto has spent the last couple of years training and fighting with the sword, and now he's ready for it to be upgraded. It's an earned power, which further sets the stage for the inevitable "the age of shinobi is over" battle, because Boruto represents the Naruto and Sasuke belief that ninja tech and ninjutsu, they can coexist as long as they supplement one another but never replace one another, versus someone like Kawaki represents the Ōtsutsuki mind state that power must be sought by any means, and as a cyborg, he is not above using science to gain power as quickly as possible, instantly, without having to earn the power itself, because Kawaki's body is literally a walking ninja tech. He is science personified. While that fight is still a long way away, we see more narrative seeds being placed for their inevitable clash. After Sumire asks him to call her by her name and not by class prez, Boruto looks completely oblivious to Sumire, looking back over her shoulder, smiling at him. And as Sarada said in the last chapter, he's got so much going on he doesn't even realize both girls are vying for his heart. However, that tender moment, it doesn't last for long. On the outskirts of Konoha, Mamushi has 4 clones of himself gathered on top of the village, looking over at the village and ordering them to erase their chakra, and he's finally ready to begin his assault. Operation Eida Baby Oil has commenced. While that's it for this chapter, you can click here to catch up on the Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter reviews. You can click above that to watch the video that explains the symbolism of Boruto's broken sword in the Code fight, or you can click here on the upper right to check out my new My Dress Up Darling video on my Anime Explained channel, or you can click the bottom right for my new Ace video from my Everything One Piece Explained channel.